Voting is about our capability to change the way the government works by changing the people who make the decisions and have a peaceful transfer of power when the people have made that choice. If you don't have that, then the alternatives are revolutions. The problem is once you understand how everything works, you understand how fragile everything is and how easy it is to lose this all.
Do you have any doubt that Russia attempted to interfere in the 2016 elections?
None.
In 2016, we know that Russian actors targeted state election systems.
Has the department conducted any kind of post-election forensics on the voting machines that were used in 2016?
Our department has not conducted forensics on specific voting machines.
I think it had no bearing on the election.
We have no evidence that votes were changed.
No actual votes were changed.
I mean, literally, I could have made any changes in the system. I could delete the candidate. I could alter any data, any vote.
I keep hearing that the system is unhackable. This is wrong. Everything is hackable, always.
These are just computers. We call them voting machines, but they're nothing more than obsolete computers.
Wow. Password, do we want for admin? Yeah.
Awesome. Success.
We are in.
It's not just about hardware. It's the hardware of our democracy.
Thank you for voting.
When people say no votes were changed, it misses the point. What matters is that you create chaos in the election system.
We tend to see these events as random and disconnected. But in fact, there's a pattern you can see. In cyber warfare, it's called a kill chain.
We may be buying the world's best 20th century military when the battlefront in the 21st century is election security, cyber security.
In order for us to find a way forward, we have to understand how broken the system is and what are the fundamental problems we are facing. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. This is our common problem, owned by everyone living in the United States. And we have to solve it in order to preserve our way of life, our society, the rule of law, and our right to self-govern.
So how we vote in the United States is very complicated. Elections are run locally. There's no national election system, no agency. And all of this is left up to the states, and within the states, it's left up to typically to the counties. There are many, many, many counties in the United States. Within the counties, it's then left to the election officials in those counties, and they get to decide how we vote. They get to decide what machines we use. And there are many different kinds of election machines.
Then the memory card is placed into the voting machine.
Some places also use paper ballots, and all of the paper ballots go into a scanner.
Paper ballot here, hand mark it, and feed it to our precinct scanner.
Other districts will use what are called direct recording electronic machines, which are touchscreen computers. And then ultimately, all of these votes will go into a central location that will tabulate the votes.
So at the end of the night, when you close the machine down from voting, there is a thumb drive.
As soon as the voting stops, the coordinator pulls this out, has a special laptop to just put it in the side of that machine. They send it to the right place, and then it's done.
Basically, there is no way that you can say, this is how America votes, because America votes in this very kind of chaotic, very idiosyncratic way.
Our vote system in the United States is very, very hard for someone to hack into because it's so clunky and dispersed. It's Mary and Fred putting a machine under the basketball hoop at the gym.
The overlapping layers of the system are what give us confidence. The fact that there's a wide variety of machines in use, a wide variety of procedures across jurisdictions.
Thousands of machines at thousands of locations across the United States.
It means that there's no national system that a hacker or bad actor can infiltrate to affect the American elections as a whole.
There is a commonly repeated statement, repeated over and over again, that the U.S. election system is protected by its vast diversity. That's not exactly true. The laws are actually very similar across the U.S., but so are also the voting machines. There is commonalities between basically all makes and models. And one of the commonalities is that the key element to carry and store the votes seems to always be a removable media. Whether it's a card, whether it's a USB stick, it doesn't matter, it's still a removable storage media. Every single step of the way, it is vulnerable to attack. One machine, another machine, another machine, and so on. It is also important to understand that modern storage devices are computers of their own. It is not just where data is stored, also is storing instructions for the voting machine, how it should operate.
What we're going to do here is modify one card. And it's a very simple process. You just add the card in and tell exactly what file you want to be put in. You run the rewrite program and then bring it to the election supervisor's office. Here is the memory card I have touched.
Okay. Now this is the only piece of Diebold equipment that you've used.
That's correct.
What we have here is a programmed optical scan ballot. There is only one question on this ballot. 2 individuals will be voting yes. The rest of us will be voting no. And then we'll scrutinize the ballots afterwards to ensure that that is indeed the mark. Oh my.
What is it? 7 yes, 1 no. Oh my God. 7 people said it could be hacked.
And we put through
6 and 2.
6 no's and 2 yes.
Oh my gosh, do you know what this means?
The memory card can be altered, and that will cause incorrect results. And every single element of the system will be reporting the same incorrect results seamlessly, leaving no evidence, nothing to be detected. The first reaction was to shoot the messenger, to try to use any legal means possible to cause a chilling effect. And there was a huge amount of resources used just to stop the communications, just to stop people discovering the vulnerabilities. There was a huge amount of lobbying, advertising, marketing to assure customers everything is fine when it was not. If those same resources would have been put to actually fix the problem, that would have been way cheaper.
The real differentiation of Dominion is we are customer driven. Our employees partner with our customers to make elections simpler, more secure, and more accessible.
We are right now outside of Tallahassee, Florida, in Leon County.
It's been almost 15 years from when we hacked the voting machines.
Back in 2005. And we are here to see our old friend Ian Sancho, who was the election supervisor of Leon County.
On September 30th of 2016, we get this cryptic email from the Secretary of State of Florida's office saying all supervisor of elections must be on this conference call at such and such a time. This is secure. You will be there, and you will not mention this call to anybody. We gathered our staff, put it on a speakerphone, and what it was the FBI was telling Florida election officials that a foreign power had penetrated a vendor which does work in Florida. It didn't take us long to figure out that they were talking about the GRU, i.e. Russia's military intelligence service. And the vendor was a Tallahassee vendor, VR, which did all the programming for a majority of the counties in the state of Florida. They do the absentee ballots, they do the early voting operation. This company, if it had been hacked, it had the potential to really impact on Florida elections.
VR Systems sells what are called electronic poll books, which are software or hardware or both that have digitized the voter databases that are used to verify who is a legitimate voter and who's not. And VR Systems are responsible for the poll books in almost every county in Florida. I think there's 67 or 68 counties, and they had sold poll books in 64 of them. They also sell them around the country. They're in 8 states.
In this case, the vendor was VR Systems. Maybe the vendor was the first target, but it's not the real target. The real target was the jurisdictions of their customers.
If what the bad guys want to do is hack into the voting process, then they might target voter registration databases because they are open to the internet by definition. Like if you want people to be able to register online, they have to be open to the internet, so you can get to them. The other thing is that with a voter registration database, imagine you go in and you flip the second and third digits of everybody's address, so that now when they show up to the polls, their ID does not match their address on file in the voter registration database. It's virtually impossible to detect by eye, so a human's not going to notice it, and yet you could cause a lot of chaos at the polls.
CBS North Carolina's Jonathan Rodriguez joins us live from Durham.
It's been a very busy day of voting here. We're here at the Bethesda Rewitton Club where people can go out and vote. It started a little bit rocky for voters out here, and it's all due to a technical glitch. Normally, when you go inside here, they would get on a computer and get your name and your information to see who's voting, right? Well, that's a system that had a glitch and required them to go back to paper polling, the old school way of doing it.
Durham County was ordered to go to the paper poll books and to shut down the computers.
Basically, now it's a big stack of papers that has every registered voter on it, and they have to check you in that way. They said it impacted at least 6 other precincts, slowing down voting times.
It's a glitch why all of the electronic voter ID system in particular precincts in America went down uniformly. Well, it's a glitch. Excuse me, there is no such thing as a glitch.
No.
That's a term that we use to hide problems, not illuminate problems.
Long lines and some equipment malfunctions were reported.
Machine malfunction forces wait times to exceed 2 hours.
This line all the way around the building waiting to vote.
I work. I won't be able to get back over here in time to vote.
If your goal is to undermine democracy, you actually don't need to change votes to hack an election. When you prevent people from casting a ballot, you've hacked an election.
Quite frankly, all election officials in America were clueless of what was going on. In fact, we heard nothing until a national security subcontractor called Reality Winner. Reality Winner ran across a report from national security detailing how the attacks were done around the states in the United States of America. This was considered top secret, and no election official in the country knew about it.
It was about a year later before the states that were actually attacked by the Russians were able to hear, no, it was the Russians doing it. We should never have that.
Barely 1 hour after The Intercept, an online news site, posted a story about a top-secret U.S. government document on Russian hacking, the Justice Department said a 25-year-old Georgia woman, Reality Lee Winner, had been arrested for leaking
The document that she leaked was the actual proof that the Russians had attempted to hack into our voting software. She was trapped in a world where she was going to work every day at the NSA, and the news was conflicting with the proof that was right on her computer screen. She was basically releasing information that we were under attack.
Based on the volume and the level of activity that we had seen, I had no reason to believe that the Russians hadn't tried to access some kind of voter system in all of the states. That was really a moment where we realized that this was a very large-scale operation beyond anything that we had really, I think, anticipated up to that point.
Reality Winner will now serve more than 5 years in prison. That's the longest sentence ever imposed for this kind of violation.
I think she's a heroine for releasing that information, because until that moment, we did not know the extent of this operation. She's got a minimum of a 5-year sentence that she's serving in federal prison. But that's not going to prevent an attack on our system or ensure that our votes are being counted.
The American government was caught off guard. The election systems were caught off guard in 2016. In a way, it was a failure of imagination on our part, because if we look back at the Russian military doctrines that were outlined in 2011 by General Gerasimov, who was the equivalent of the Russian chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he said in 2011 that Russia could not compete with the West in tanks and trucks and planes and bullets, but they could compete in the area of cyber and misinformation, disinformation, and sowing dissension. And what better way to sow dissension than to corrupt an election process?
I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I can tell you every single country in NATO has had Russian interference in their elections, every one of them.
The campaign of centrist Emmanuel Macron claims it suffered a massive and coordinated 11th-hour cyber attack with leaked documents designed to destabilize tomorrow's runoff election.
Analysts say Putin wants to work against Macron to tilt the election toward his favorite candidate, the far-right populist Marine Le Pen, who wants to bring France out of NATO and the EU.
The day before the Ukrainian presidential election results were announced, a hacker group calling themselves Cyber Berkut infiltrated Ukraine's central election computer systems. According to Ukraine officials, if the malicious software they installed had not been discovered and removed, it would have portrayed that ultra-nationalist right sector leader Dmitry Yarosh had won with 37% of the vote, instead of the 1% he actually received. Moderate Petro Poroshenko, the actual winner with a majority of the vote, would have been placed in second with 29%. That evening, Russian Channel 1 aired a bulletin declaring Mr. Yarosh the winner, quoting these exact percentages.
We are more vulnerable to this kind of subtle, hard-to-attribute attack than we are to tanks, airplanes, and ships. And we need to shift the mentality away from the internet is secure and no one is able to tamper with the American election system to the reality that was demonstrated in 2016.
In 2016, we just assume we're the big dog and no one's going to mess with the big dog on the porch. That's not true of the Russians.
So this is the land border between Finland and Russia. This border is very closely monitored and guarded. We don't know what is in the Russian side, we only know what is in the Finnish side. Finnish side has a constant electronic surveillance to make certain that everything crossing the border will be detected and will be intercepted by the border guards who are always on duty. The borderline between Finland and Russia was altered in the Second World War, where large portions of the land was lost to Russia, so Soviet Union back those days. So we do have a long-lasting distrust to our neighbors, and really the political climate where we are right now, it's we are in a new Cold War, in a very real sense.
Se jäätelökuva on tämän lehden, en minulla mitään käsitystä, mitä siellä on.
Mä itse asiassa, kun sä aukaset sitä, tämä sivu, joo. Tämä. Että miten suuria nämä aikaisemmin oli.
Yeah, that was a mainframe computer. That actually, I think this is Honeywell. It's kind of funny to see the old big tape mass storage units. Yeah, actually the first thing here is Harri, 15 years old, is programming enterprise computer systems. And here's my software which was used in developing new treatments for cancer and leukemia, New Hope. Two different medical systems which I helped to build. Another one is a blood analysis. Another one is imaging, heart imaging system with visible light. Yeah.
How old were you when you were writing that software?
13. No, I was younger, 12.
Ja mentiin seuraavan kerran sinne neuvolaan taas tämmöiseen vuositarkastukseen. Meillä oli kirja mukana, semmoinen pikkuinen kirja, jossa oli postikortin kokoisia ne liput. Niin hän sellaista sanoi ja kysyi Anna Harrilta, mikä maan lippu tuo on. Ja Harri sanoi, se on se. Ja vaikka oli ihan samannäköisiä, lipput näytti näitä, oli valkoinen ja punainen, ne oli ihan kuin samoja lippuja. Koska hän ei erehtynyt sen maasta.
Minkä ikäinen mä olin silloin?
Käsin 3-vuotias.
3 years old. I don't know if I want it, but... So this is the third highest medal which can be given by military to civilian, given for me.
What was it given for, Harri?
Writing software.
It's been pretty good software to get a medal.
Yep. Pretty good software. Because those are not floating around.
Can you tell us what the software did?
No. It's for general service.
If the end game of the Russians in the last US presidential elections was to make United States weaker, they absolutely did that. A divided nation is a weaker nation. We've been tracking Russian cyber operations for 15 years, and it's remarkable how good they are in this and how brazen they are. They're actually not worried about getting caught. And that's remarkable, because I remember the first white papers we released about their targets in Central Europe or in Poland or in Ukraine. And we thought we had a really explosive report. We were publishing their servers, their IP ranges, their encryption keys, everything.
And then when we put it out, we put out the PDF on our website, we get thousands of downloads from all over the world. And now we're watching like, okay, how are they going to react? Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to stop everything? They did nothing. The next day, they continue with the same operations. Same IP addresses, same encryption keys, same piece of malware. They just didn't care. And that's the only evidence you need that these are governmental operations. They're not worried about getting caught. They're not worried about getting police to their doors. Police won't come to their doors because they are the government themselves.
Well, actually, they probably are building into the model. That's part of the thing. They are expecting to be caught. And it's on your face. It's a power play. It's like, see what I can do? I don't care.
I hate the way you think, Harri. I hate the way you think.
Well, you know, I think like the bad person.
Yes.
That's what I do.
Right.
My name is Thomas Hicks, and I'm chairman of the United States Election Assistance Commission, or EAC. What is important to identify in today's hearing is that the complexity of our American election assistance system both deters attacks and allows election officials to ensure the integrity of the election in the event of an attack.
So you've got a couple of systems that are here in the election structure that most Americans don't know about. They know about where they go to vote in their polling place. They don't know the system from their polling place to their state or their county and how that gets counted, or even something called the Election Assistance Commission, which is an advisory commission to be able to help everyone in their elections.
First and foremost, I am here to communicate one message. That message is that our elections are secure. They are secure because the American election administration system inherently protects them.
The first time we learned about Rasputin was on December 1st, 2016, while I was monitoring one of the most highly vetted Russian cybercriminal communities. Essentially, it's a forum. On forums, you can find compromised credentials, you can find malware, you can find partners for cash-out operations, and this is where Rasputin was attempting to sell his information. Imagine a Craigslist, right? You go to Craigslist to buy a used TV set, right? But in this case, it was access to the Election Assistance Commission. He was able to implant a backdoor access, which would allow him into their system whenever he wants. So we've got some screenshots which he provided to us a while ago, proving that he actually has access to their system. And here you can see some of the reports, project names, we can see software names, companies, and reports, test reports of this software.
Well, this is very interesting.
So
EAC is acting as the ultimate clearinghouse of all the information for best practices, for testing. Also, they have a lot of information which systems are deployed and where. Hot Pacific, Dominion, ESNS, you basically have way over 80% of all the system which is on the first page. So for anyone who is wanting to do illegal acts, this gives you one-stop shop, all the information you need to plan your attack campaign. It's a very horrible scenario.
Yeah. Daniel Brandis.
Yeah, stolen credentials. Some guy whose credentials got stolen.
My name was on that screenshot, but it could have been anybody. To this day, I still don't know why they chose me. But it was quite a shock. Maybe I was on Rasputin's hack because I was the new guy, and he wanted to exploit the new guy, because that would be the path of least resistance. What Rasputin did was he went to the login page, and where you put your username in, he had put his exploit code in there, and then he had full access to the database.
He also sent us some screenshots from the internal database, not only the portal, but the database itself.
There's very recent dates. We are talking here September 2016, October, November 2016. So this is very recent.
They can do whatever they want to that database. And now the database and the server were separate. So now if you have access to the database, then you can get into the server. And the proprietary information was not on the database, it was on the server.
Rasputin told us that not only he was able to download the information from EEC servers, but since he had full admin access, he could also upload any file he wanted. Now, cyber criminal sitting somewhere in Russia controls your computer, and you not even know this. He told me that he was negotiating with several different people. One middleman from Iran was more or less solid buyer, as he actually put it.
One of the document archives was the test reports of voting machines. And these reports have a list of file names. One could argue that file name list is not valuable, but for an attacker, it is extremely valuable. Now you know third-party libraries, you know open source software, you learn a lot.
Rasputin, to this day, could still have that information. I mean, if he copied them all, he probably still has all that very sensitive information that he could end up selling still.
As soon as we learned the full extent of his hack, we knew that it was tremendously important. And I spent all night long talking to him and waiting for law enforcement to get back to us in the morning.
And you can learn where a state has vulnerability by hacking into the EAC. So if someone gets into the EAC, there may be communication from one state saying, hey, we're having a problem with a certain county. They now know where the weak link is, and they can try to reach in that weak link. So it's a long system, but for a persistent actor, especially for a foreign government who has the finances and the capability to be able to be persistent in it, this is a way to do it.
We have 3 main election vendors that are running the election machinery that run our democracy in this country: Dominion, ES&S, and HART.
We're very concerned because there's only 3 companies. You could easily hack into them. It makes it seem like all these states are doing different things, but in fact, 3 companies are controlling this.
We don't know anything about how they organize themselves and how their software works because it's all proprietary.
The degree to which the voting machine companies will say, we got this, that's almost always a warning sign for anybody in the cybersecurity business, because unless they are really truly skilled and have been doing cybersecurity as their main business for a long time, they usually don't got this.
Unlike Microsoft, who's actually very transparent about their security issues, and they have hackers routinely come in and hack them, and then they make their vulnerabilities public information in most cases. The voting machine vendors are the opposite of that.
You know, one of the things me and my teammates here at ES&S talk about frequently is we really wish we had the opportunity for all of you, our customers, to come visit us here in Omaha and see what we do live and in action.
Those companies will give lip service to cybersecurity, but when cybersecurity experts come in and say, we would like to talk to you about this, or we would like to see how you are handling this, they are actually very, very negative.
What I have found, especially in the voting system arena, is that security is not really taken very seriously. We posted a testing plan with the California Secretary of State's office saying we were going to do X, Y, and Z, and they approved that plan. And so we started that plan of testing.
Voting on the DS200 is as easy as 1, 2, 3. The DS200 digital scanner is a simple-to-use yet cutting-edge.
And what we found is just, it's staggering. There were multiple vulnerabilities that could allow an attacker to get the highest level of privilege or the highest level of rights, and then gain remote access into the system and do what you want to do, whether it's change an election or shut the system down.
Our dedication is to the absolute highest standards of accuracy, security,
and reliability. We believe in honesty, commitment, trust, and respect.
And when ES&S discovered that we were not using their testing plans, they were appalled. When we used our own testing plan and found these vulnerabilities, they pretty much told us that they had their own team and that they were not interested. The fact that we have vendors that say you cannot look at our code is the first problem. In 2014, we evaluated Dominion's Democracy Suite.
We're on the forefront of really something that is going to be accessible, it's going to be cost-effective, and it's going to be efficient.
We'd found a number of vulnerabilities. The same thing that with ES&S, we found multiple operating system patches missing. And essentially what that means is an attacker can inject code into that system, execute that with the possibility of receiving some sort of control. If I can get on that system, if I can get access to the database, and if I can change the elections, change an election for a city, for a county, for a state, however. How can a vendor sell a voting system with this many vulnerabilities? And I can't find a straight answer.
What's happened over the last couple of years is obviously there's been a revolution in the kind of devices that you can get off the shelf. And it's really allowed us to, again, to focus on the actual election software that we're loading up on these off-the-shelf components.
A lot of developers today developing applications which are critical don't really know what they are doing, and they are simply picking up a ready-made blocks and building the application by using these blocks, and not that careful, because people are only looking, is it functional?
And I think that's probably one of the issues that the vendors are having, is that they don't know what they have in those systems. They don't know what code is in those systems. They just make it work and they sell it. We should know every single line of code that is in that software. We should know every bit and byte that goes across the lines in that hardware, and we should be able to validate that. We should have procedures to validate that everything that we're doing is the right way of doing things.
There is a gentleman who is in eBay selling AccuVote TSX voting machine, and that is a voting machine system used here in Ohio. Well, it will be interesting to see what is the story behind this, why these are $79 each. It's going to be very interesting to learn what's going on here. Yeah, I used to grow up in places like this, building stuff from salvage electronics. The smell of old, actually condensators. Oh, wow. Look at that.
It's a lot more than I was expecting.
Oh my God.
The AccuVote TSX is one of the most popular voting machines in the United States. It's a direct recording electronic machine. It's an extremely vulnerable machine. It's also a very old machine, and yet it's still being used all over the country.
I was contacted by the insurance company that did the buyout. I have not printed off and looked at all of them when the last time it was in service. I just know it. 2002 is when they put them in service, and they turned around and pulled them out.
Look.
Yeah, it's when you get all those touch screens right after the 2000 election.
So 2011.
Oh, yeah.
2012.
Oh, wow.
No. It looks like this has been last time used in June, July 2013. That's the newer one. That's the one which the vendor claims to be secure. 220 and 5.
All righty.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So do you sell these anywhere in the world?
I don't right now, but I would have absolutely no problem in doing that. You know, I'm a recycle center. I get them in. It doesn't matter to me where they came from. I'm just going to try to make a dime on them or recycle them one way or the other.
The common defense that why the systems are unhackable in the election world has always been that the bad people will have no access to the machines. We have 1,200 machines auctioned in an eBay. This takes away that argument. Anyone who has any kind of motivation and $75 in their pocket can now get an access to the machine, as many machines as they need, and fine-tune their attacks.
There is a term called asymmetrical warfare. Applies to a whole series of tactics, which are very inexpensive to produce, which have an outsized impact. And unfortunately, the internet is a perfect asymmetric tool.
From what we've determined, no voting machines are connected to the internet.
Voting machines themselves are not connected to the internet.
They are non-network pieces of hardware that do not connect to the internet.
And the devices are not connected to the internet. Those things are not connected to the internet.
Not connected to the internet, and therefore cannot be attacked.
None of them are connected to the internet, and so there will not be any sort of internet hack or internet incidents.
All right, Maggie, probably best if you take the stand.
Every single system we have, there is a place where it touches internet. There's nothing anymore in our world, really, which doesn't touch internet one way or another. It might be indirect, it might be infrequent, but it's always there.
All right. Oh, it wants to go to internet. That's very nice of it. The fact that it's the first option is offering, it's kind of interesting. A commonly used argument that these machines are safe from hacking because they are never connected to internet. It immediately asks to want to connect to the local area network. And local area network can always be connected to internet. So the reality here is once you're connected to network, you don't know where the network is, what else is connected to the internet. That is the problem of the network. Election offices think that connected to internet is dangerous only when it's within the election cycle. Actually, in many cases, it has been found that barriers are lowered between the election cycles. Malware can infect machines between the cycles and stay dormant, waiting for the right time to activate. It's very, very easy to write a software piece in this machine which will silently change the votes as they come and go, and it will wipe itself clean, and there will be no evidence on the machine that it ever existed.
I think with the last 10 years, people have gotten really adept now at going to an unknown piece of hardware and taking it apart and figuring out how it works. So that's why when I hear these stories that, as far as we can tell, the machines have not been tampered with, it's like, yeah, but it's a pretty simple machine. It wouldn't be hard to remove the traces.
8.5 miles. Continue on to Michigan 14 East.
Maybe Harri takes it a little bit personally when people do stupid things with technology. I do in a little way, but maybe not as much as Harri does. I think I first met Harri probably back in about 2007. We went to Estonia together and highlighted all of these terrible problems with their internet voting system. When we were in Estonia, Harri went out drinking with the security supervisor for the Estonia voting system, who was Russian. And he told us that after each of them had finished a full bottle of vodka, he drank the root password to the Estonia voting servers out of their chief of security. That's what Harri claims.
How you doing?
How are you?
Long
Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you.
Hi,
This is Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Nice to meet you, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen you a number of times, but only on a screen.
Wow, look at this.
Yeah, it's that was one hell of a warehouse.
Looks like a TSX.
75 bucks.
Yep.
Take as many as we want.
All right, let's plug it in and turn it on and see what happens. And, ballot station secure touchscreen voting terminal. What do you think the security pin is?
I don't know. I mean, it used to be 111, but I know they upgraded to 111111. I'm sorry, that was not a joke. Well, these are not tied at all.
No.
There you go.
This is the slot that can sometimes be used for a modem, right?
Not only modem, there's the telephone jack here, but this also can have an Ethernet network card.
Yes.
And the other thing which is interesting is the SD slot, which not only can have an additional memory card, but also it can be used for wireless.
Oh, I forgot about this. Yeah, there's an SD slot. You showed years ago how just putting in a card with a special file name could rewrite all the software in the machine, make it do whatever you want. I mean, there are no two ways about it. This is architecturally not a safe way to cast votes. And boy, I'm worried now more than ever about nation-state attackers, about real state-level attacks on these machines.
That's true. However, I still think that the one problem with the nation-state attacks being talked is that it gives you a false sense of security, that the lone wolf and smaller guy cannot do it themselves too. Everything we discovered, how easy these are hackable for lone wolf, is still true too.
Just look at this motherboard. There's so many different wires connecting to it. Each of these is a different type of input or output device. These machines want to be talking to other devices. They're built for it. And that's what magnifies the threat, because ultimately, just hacking one machine, coming up to one, opening it up, resoldering it, that's not an attack that will scale. But the thing that will scale is piggybacking on the data that's being copied into the machines. That's what's going to allow an attacker to upset an election across an entire county, an entire state, an entire country. Here, I have a set of tools that I've built for vote stealing software, and it can piggyback on the normal pre-election processes to get to every voting machine.
You also have here the actual software driving the printer.
Right. It completely controls the paper summary tapes, the things it prints at the end of elections that have the totals. So an attacker can program the machine to print out whatever they want, even to just completely disregard the election results. And then the code to run the machine and the printer gets delivered to every voting machine along with the ballot programming.
What is your estimation? How many hours it took for you to create the tool set?
Oh, this was just part-time over a couple of months. Certainly more than I think people could do in a long weekend, but not something that requires nation-state level effort either.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Voting Village. We have a variety of voting machines available here. One of the reasons we're doing this is to broaden the community of people who are going to be experts in how voting machines work. Harri, if you want to say a few
Yes. Every voting machine in this room is in use in next elections. Every single one, every single model is a model still in use. We are actually asking your help because we don't know much about those devices. Basic idea here is all the machines are there to be tested, to be used. You can open it, don't break all of them, but if something breaks, that's fine. They are bought from eBay and they do have the previous election in. If you see something, say something. Tell what you found. Every discovery, every information you have, please let them know so that we can inform people what you have discovered and what you have found. We are here to help so that you can have fun and explore and discover new things. Thank you.
So at DEF CON, we're always a really open conference. We knew, even though we were some, sketchy hackers, the manufacturers were going to want to know what's going on. So instead of creating an adversarial relationship, we know you're going to try to be there, let's just invite you. We're doing this thing, you might not like it, but come and participate, tell us why we're wrong. Bring your latest equipment if we're testing the wrong equipment. Get some free consulting. I mean, you've got some of the world's best hackers. Maybe this is a free test. Maybe you can get some advice out of it. And nobody took us up on the offer.
This is the first time we have a public to be able to experience and take a look into the critical spot, which has been a little bit hiding in the shadow in all the previous election and voting machine security studies.
Finally, for the first time, non-experts, having signed a non-disclosure agreement researchers are having a chance to see what these machines are like, how incredibly, trivially vulnerable they are, and what effect this is going to have on their democracy if they don't get involved.
Try to see if there's any obvious storage on here.
This is a Diebold voter registration machine, and its purpose is to just hold voter registration data like names, addresses, social security numbers, lots of scary stuff. And the database is stored on these cards.
Because one of the things that you can do with these machines is install your own malware on whatever the memory media is that will go back and infect the back-end vote tabulating and next year's ballot design systems for years to come. Because the software doesn't get upgraded, your malware could stay there forever and no one would know it was there.
Hackers are a wonderful resource. We make significant discoveries.
So I could put a program on there that just modifies the counts.
Yes. We are here only 3 days a year. The real adversaries, they run it 24/7 with massive funding.
Use the display command. It will fill the screen with whatever you tell it to.
If you don't believe that there is this kind of room in Russia running 24/7, you're kidding yourself.
We have access to the machine. Here it is, Microsoft Windows XP. And I'm demonstrating how you can remotely from this laptop gain complete control of the voting machine. Doing it right now. This is the prompt of the voting machine. We are in. We have made it. And there is a directory which is called reports.
Does that now mean that you can, what does that mean?
He wirelessly got into the machine.
Yes. So I'm connected to the machine. But I think I can take control of the screen of the machine. And so what you can see now, if it works, it actually kind of shows me the screen.
Oh my God.
Windows XP. I can turn the machine off from here as well if I want to. Okay. Now I can exit the machine, and you know what's going to happen? I am turning off the machine for them. They're going to be very surprised. Do you want to exit the machine? Now it's disconnected, and now let's see if what their faces look like.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
I don't know what just happened.
Okay. You know why that machine went off?
No, it switched to an administrator login screen, and then it went off. And we were like, what happened?
Because he turned it off from his laptop.
Wow. Because we were trying all the different smart cards to see if one of them actually did anything.
He took control, and he turned it off.
That's awesome.
And you can do all this all automatically. You can actually have a machine, a car that drives by the voting places and updates all of the votes. And because there's no paper evidence, so the machine will actually, you will never ever notice that this actually happened.
This vulnerability is so trivial, the tools are so widely known, it would be easy to imagine that somebody will hack the machine from the parking lot with never seeing the voting machine.
What happens is attacks only get easier. So maybe it was a super sophisticated attack in 2016. By 2020 or 2022, it's only average, right? We got to stay one step ahead of this. If it was the Russians yesterday, who is it tomorrow? Is it an organized crime group Is it a political action group? Is it environmental rights group? Oh yeah, you can't swing the presidential election because you'd have to tamper with too many precincts. Well, okay, what if I'm just tampering with my local precinct because I just want to get my guy in? What if the skills become so widespread that you can do this on a county or state level? Then what? Maybe getting your governor is almost as important to you as getting the president, depending upon what your issue is. So I don't want to get so spun up that it's like an all or nothing federal thing. It's an everything thing.
So it looks like the Windows CE partition is G-zipped.
I feel like we are in terrible danger of losing what it means to be a democracy. If elections can be altered subtly, they can be altered in a way that is undetectable, how does one trust the results of their election? And a democracy functions on trust. Without that trust, things descend into chaos and anarchy. Those of us who know how vulnerable the voting systems are in these elections are terribly afraid right now.
Brian Kemp is running for governor at a moment in time when he was also overseeing the elections in Georgia, i.e. he was overseeing his own election.
Secretary of State Brian
Republican
Kemp.
Brian Kemp and Democrat
between
Stacey
Brian
Abrams.
Kemp and Stacey Abrams, which is too close to call.
An historic race in a dead heat.
In a tight race. It couldn't be any tighter.
This is a battle for the soul of our state, y'all.
I got a big truck, just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that.
I'm Stacey Abrams, and I'm running for governor. Because where you come from shouldn't determine how far you can go.
The canary in the coal mine is Georgia. Georgia is in the situation where every single person in Georgia who votes on the same kind of machine, the AccuVote, which is, as we know, an extremely insecure machine that can be easily hacked, and yet it's still being used.
With his family in tow, Brian Kemp voted today at the historic Winterville train depot. Like most Georgians, he was voting on a machine using 16-year-old technology. After a first try in the voting booth, he came back holding the yellow voting card he'd been given and told the poll worker,
This is an invalid card.
Okay, just go back in there, redo it for you.
Kemp fought against efforts earlier this year to replace the machine, saying a last-minute change to paper ballots would create chaos. Chaos, which he now says has been avoided. Are you concerned about the reports of problems people are having?
No, not at all today. Been really a smooth election.
This is a look at lines inside Annistown Elementary in Gwinnett County where some machines were not even working.
There were some major problems here at this Gwinnett County polling place. Those voting machines that you see right over there stopped working earlier this morning. Some were here for 3 hours, others here for much longer.
I wanted to come in, do my voting, and get out, and that didn't happen today.
Some people were here for 5 hours. By the way, this is the second largest county in the state. It's also a Democratic stronghold.
What time the polls close tonight?
It's supposed to close at 7, but we've received 25-minute extension, but that's not enough. We're still fighting to get a full hour. There's a saying in Georgia that as goes Gwinnett County, which is this county, so goes the governorship. The Secretary of State, who is also a candidate, is telling everybody that these machines are not hackable. that they are safe.
I don't know if you knew, but I hacked that machine, which is used here.
Okay, call the police.
No, that was a long time ago. 2006, I showed how that machine can be hacked.
And then they are here today telling us
Yeah,
that
12 years later.
It's not hackable.
12 years later, that same machine is still in use and is still hackable.
The little yellow cards that you get to vote, it wouldn't write on them. So all 20, they give us a stack of 24. None of them work. Have no idea what was wrong with those cards.
Have y'all had an interesting day so far?
How's your day been?
Busy.
Hi,
Harri.
Hi.
Nice
to see you.
Likewise,
Hi,
Harri. So, the cards aren't working.
That's what they tell.
Which shouldn't be possible, right?
I mean, that's weird. Excuse me. Let's see. Yeah, so,
Church, parent church, fellowship.
generally I'm looking for voters who insert their card into the machine and it fails to work. So like right now, that guy's having issues. So we should head ahead and talk to him a bit. Excuse me, were you having issues just now?
Somehow my voting was got changed to a different residence. I transferred my trucking company and my driver's license at my farm.
I see. Yeah, so you did change your driver's license.
Well, that's been 15 years ago.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. But I've always voted here. We've lived there 30 years, so I don't know how it got changed, but I don't know. It's after 30 years, something years.
It's weird.
I voted here. We moved out here in '84, so I've never had any issues.
Do you know what the error message was on that screen?
It was a warning. I don't remember exactly what it said. It was a warning, error warning.
But it was just having trouble writing to the card?
It wouldn't write to any of the cards. We had 24 cards. I need a driver's license, too. Okay. And none of them will work.
Okay. You just said it was something saying card is inserted incorrectly or unable to write to card. What was that?
On a TS?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were all TSs.
I mean, this whole thing is bizarre. I heard the same thing happen in a number of precincts, not only here.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's another precinct like 2 miles down the road that had the same issue.
Was there no control? Didn't they test this? How it's possible that you ship up something that fails on arrival? And it would be acceptable if you would have 1 or 2 cards failing.
Sure.
So you would have to cook the whole bag of cards in order to get that kind of failure, right?
Well, I don't know what could have been going wrong.
We put them in microwaves, and you can do that. Yeah,
that's true.
But I think you're right. One at a time, you get random failures on the cards. But where did it come from?
Through ElectionNet.
Secretary of State's office. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That 4-hour line here. It shouldn't work that way.
Stacey Abrams lost, Brian Kemp won, and Brian Kemp then took the lobbyist for ES&S as his chief of staff.
So there is a huge battle that will probably be lost in Georgia over using ballot marking devices rather than voter-marked or hand-marked paper ballots. This is really going to be a catastrophe. It's far more expensive than hand-marked paper ballots. It is a vehicle for disenfranchisement in a number of different ways. Other than feeding corporate profits and making it easier to manipulate election outcomes, I don't really see the point.
That's what I was thinking immediately.
All right, let's go play. Richmond San Rafael Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge, and in a second we'll see the San Francisco Bay Bridge. The fundamental problem with electronic voting technology is the evidence that it produces about who actually won. Most of them don't produce really convincing evidence. And the best technology for voter verifiability is hand-marked paper ballots. We need a trustworthy paper trail. In about 2007, I came up with the idea of risk-limiting audits, which are a way of providing statistical evidence that the outcome is correct, or having a large chance of correcting the outcome if it isn't correct.
So risk-limiting audits, there's a lot of misconceptions. Everybody agrees that's the way forward, but there's so much misconceptions.
The risk-limiting audit relies on a paper trail. If you don't have paper, then you can't do one. It's easy to do a risk-limiting audit. You just do a hand count of everything. Done. The subtlety is how to limit the risk and keep the workload down.
Right.
The procedure is you start looking at paper, and you keep looking at paper until you have convincing evidence that looking at all of it wouldn't change the result. So you can think of it as an intelligent, incremental recount that stops as soon as it's clear that it's pointless. Mm-hmm. And if it never becomes clear that it's pointless, it just keeps going until you've looked at all the paper.
The key is that the sample you choose is random.
So that's what lets you protect against any kind of error or problem whatsoever, whether it's a malicious opponent or a random machine failure or a bug or whatever it is. By looking at it randomly, you can guarantee a big chance of catching it.
Right.
It's a check on the tabulation in a way that is economical and efficient and accomplishes the minimum standard of verifying that the votes were tabulated accurately enough to tell who really won.
Good to be here. Hello. In Georgia, we ended up seeing the strangest thing. In a heavily Democratic precinct, there was one machine out of a 7-machine precinct that showed heavy Republican wins, while the precinct itself and all of the other machines were showing heavy Democratic wins. And it made us go, wait a minute, something's weird about this. How could this happen?
But just on the one machine out of 7, the other 6 showed a Democratic majority in every statewide contest.
Right, and in Georgia and in a lot of other states, when the machines are printing tapes at 7 o'clock at night when the polls close, it is a law that for purposes of transparency, that those tapes, one from every machine, be posted at the door. And so like here's a photograph.
It was just an end-of-the-day dump of what was in the memory onto paper. So it's just the final tally according to its internal software, according to that machine.
Right. And this particular tape is the one that got all of the Republican votes. It got substantially more votes for Brian Kemp, the Republican, than Stacey Abrams, the Democrat. And this was true all the way down the ballot. The Republican wins every single race on this one machine. Something had to happen to cause one machine to have such different results than its neighbors. I called Philip and said, is this important? Is it as odd as it looks to me? So he went to work on it with his magic statistics.
And the magic grad student, yes.
So what we did was simulate this process, run it over and over again, saying if we had this many Democratic voters and this many Republican voters in our precinct, and we assigned them at random to machines, how likely is it that we'd get a Republican majority as great as what we saw on machine 3? So we did this probably 10,000 times, and it was an astronomically small chance.
Less than 1 in a million.
Georgia is buying new election machines for the whole state to replace the AccuVote voting machines that we know are insecure. And they're replacing them with another set of machines that are also insecure because they use barcodes, and barcodes can be hacked.
The model that is their favorite choice right now is the Dominion ImageCast.
The ImageCast X will not permit the voter to overvote a contest, to change
What
or
this
cancel
does is it's a touchscreen machine. The voter enters their vote, and what is spit out is a paper ballot, and their votes are encoded as barcodes. The vote itself is in that barcode. No humans I know can read barcode very well. And it's that vote that is then put into a scanner and counted. It is, again, putting a computer between the voter and his ballot. Putting a computer between a voter and his ballot is going to make sure that you don't have an auditable, reliable election.
So even though the election officials in Georgia are paying lip service to the fact they now have a paper trail, they are creating a paper trail that in fact can't actually be audited.
Paper ballots and risk-limiting audits are the unanimous, I can't find a single expert in the field who believes that you can get this fixed without those two basic requirements.
And the only way you get anything done in the Senate right now is if it's bipartisan. The way the filibuster rules work, you have to work across the aisle.
The Secure Elections Act is a bipartisan effort to be able to try to address what were the problems that we already see.
There are vulnerabilities in our system that we should pay attention to. Some are dramatic, like actually changing votes. Some are subtle, like just trying to alter a formula in a website and making that vulnerable so that people can't trust the results that they got. The Russians did this last time in 2016. It could be the North Koreans next time. It could be a domestic hacktivist group that just decides they're mad and they want to be able to create some chaos. It doesn't have to be a foreign actor.
Voting machines that do not produce a paper trail, the only record of the votes cast is a digital record, which could be hacked and which is impossible to audit reliably. That strikes me as a prescription for disaster.
The most important things are to make sure we have votes recorded on paper ballots, which just cannot be changed in a cyber attack.
How would you do a non-paper audit?
Senator, I think it would be basically impossible.
When you and your colleagues hacked election systems, did you get caught? Did they see your intrusion into their systems?
The one instance when I was invited to hack a real voting system while people were watching was in Washington, D.C. in 2010. And in that instance, it took less than 48 hours for us to change all the votes, and we were not caught.
There's a number of bills that are pending before Congress, and I think some of them before this committee, on the subject of election integrity. Mr. Chairman, are we going to be marking up any of those bills on election security?
At this point, I don't see any likelihood that those bills would get to the floor if we mark them up.
Why?
Same reason we couldn't get our bill to the floor last year.
Which is?
I think the majority leader just is of the view that this debate reaches no conclusion.
It's very important that we maintain the integrity and the security of our elections in our country. Any Washington involvement in that task needs to be undertaken with extreme care, and on a thoroughly bipartisan basis.
Leader McConnell has not brought a single piece of election security legislation to the floor, even though the president's own security team has said that we are in jeopardy.
We were not able to get the bill out of committee. We were not able to actually have a vote on it. Because I can assure you, if we had a vote on this legislation, whether it's at committee or on the floor of the Senate, it would pass overwhelmingly.
I don't see how they explain not passing a bill to protect our election equipment.
The White House, just as we were on the verge of getting a markup in the Rules Committee, getting it to the floor where I think we would get the vast majority of senators, the White House made calls to stop this. Were you aware of that?
No.
Okay, well, that happened.
There are plenty of Republicans in the House and the Senate who are deeply concerned about this. Deeply, deeply concerned about it, as they should be, as we all should be. This is not a partisan issue. Everyone should care about this, whoever they vote for. everybody.
And you've got to believe at some point it's something bad is going on, that people don't want to pass it.
I don't remember the specific person that referred me to you, but I do remember that you were named by one of my sources as a very credible cybersecurity expert. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was like I emailed someone else and they were like, "You should talk to Harri Hursti, not me. I'm busy." And so this all started around the 2016 election. This is a pretty interesting and important seeming thing. You know, we kept reading a series of national reports about various named and unnamed state election systems or websites that were compromised or hacked. And my immediate question was, is there any affiliation here with the Russians and the Russian actors that have been identified as being involved in the other hacks? So I'll play this tape of the state elections director.
Russian directors had more or less visited our website and rattled on the door. And last week, I had a secure briefing with the FBI and DHS. We know that they were able to look at our website, but there was no breach, I guess, essentially.
Is there any sense that they tried to actually, like, access anything?
No, they wiggled on the door and moved on.
Wiggled on the door, meaning like they literally looked at the website. It's not like they tried to input credentials or...
There was an IP address.
I think that's the gist of it. We got some information that seemed to indicate pretty clearly that there was more to the story here, and based on that, we formulated a Freedom of Information Act request, just sort of sent it off. And
how long after election you FOIA'd these documents?
More than a year. And then we got this whole package of documents.
Really interesting here when you start looking what they explain.
The Alaska system was compromised, but it was compromised by a completely different actor. That actor is named Cyberzeist, and sort of linked to a Twitter account that has a sort of past history of hacking other figures. They talked about how the attacker had originated from what appeared to be the IP address of a power plant in India. State officials had to report to the FBI. And there was more than officials here had originally led Alaskans to believe.
To me, if this is the whole documentation, then there was never a proper investigation. They didn't take this serious. This was quickly brushed over, saying, okay, it's contained, so this is the whole problem, and we cleaned the whole problem, it's all fine. And nothing to see here, we were not hacked.
I am Cyberzeist, or what I like to call myself is not Zeist, it's Cyberzeist. But the actual pronunciation is Zeist, obviously. Zeist was derived out of my gaming handle back in the days when I used to game a lot. Means game in the morning and hack in the night. I have tried to depict as much as possible a distant image from my real personality on the cyberspace. Because it's not my real identity. I can alter it the way I want. It's an individual. So the Alaska Elections website has a very simple portal. It was looking very badly made. So on 6th of November 2016, in the evening, I found out that Alaska Elections website administrator panel can be accessed only through the Alaskan IP address. I set up my system so that my system represents that it is originating from Alaska. There are two empty fields. One is to enter your email ID, and the other one is to enter your password. I could input certain kind of instructions in place of your username and password that will produce an error that will give the details of what is installed inside the database. Through that, you can easily access each and everyone's user account and password that is available inside the database, even the administrator's ones.
They are making a claim here that the attacker got access to the file system, and they sort of kind of leave it there. If you have that kind of access to file system, you can simply replace files and gain control of the system. Security researchers like myself, this tells that whether they believe what they say themselves doesn't matter. This tells that the truth is likely to be way worse than what they're saying, clearly worse than this explanation. There was no containment in effect.
I had root access, which just not only allowed me access to make small changes, but granted me full access of the system. The amazing thing was, I was able to access the GEM system particular, which hosts or stores the actual live voting data of US presidential elections in 2016. I could have made any changes in the system. I mean, the changes like deleting the candidate. I could kick anyone out. I could alter any data, any vote. It was such a rush that at that particular moment, I felt like I was the god at that time. The only problem was that even if I could change the result, there might be something that I would miss that would produce some kind of indication or system alert. And the most fear inside a hacker's life or inside my mind that day was, if I get caught, then I'll be destroyed. My team will be destroyed. Many other people involved with me will be destroyed. So that was at the same moment which pulled my legs back and said, do not edit anything, just see what is going on. Then we can plan or take out or execute our next steps. That's why I didn't make any changes.
What I take of this is that he got into that one place and then he deployed a tool which he doesn't want to disclose that tool. That tool took him all of a sudden to a completely different place. And because he wants to use that tool later, he doesn't want to give any hint how that jump happened. But omission of that information is not making him less credible, because he could have made a bullshit story, and he didn't.
The group which I work with generally came to know that certain Russian group, I'm not going to specifically name the group, that they are trying to scan the servers throughout America just before the election would have started. That Russians were actually trying to hack inside the system and change the vote. Not just individual hackers like me, but state actors. If I wanted to, I would have easily made millions of dollars by just selling the Alaska backdoor. And then what an intelligent hacker will do, he will keep himself dormant till the right time comes.
If you use the standardized criminal tools, all of this can be carried out almost effortlessly. So this also brings back to the question, why Alaska? Is Alaska the ultimate target, or is Alaska just an intermediate step towards something else? you have to think about what are the threat actors' real motivations. Everything else is tools, tactics, technology, irrelevant. What you're really going after is the mind of your adversary. And the mind, in some cases, an individual mind, sometimes a collective mind of the society. When a sufficiently large group of members of society don't anymore believe in the society, and that's where the collapse starts. It's called kill chain. Kill chain is a 2,000-year-old concept which can be used in any kind of operation, whether it is military or organized crime or some other activity. And in kill chain, you move step by step towards your ultimate target. First, you gather intelligence. What is the landscape? After that, you analyze the intelligence, and now you're asking yourself a question, who are the possible targets? After that, it's weaponization. So now you know against whom you are going, what tools you are using. I think the most important part of the kill chain is the paralyzation of your adversaries. And when the governments cannot assess the situation, take an action, and correct it, that's where the paralyzation happens. That's really when you finish the target. The chain will go on until you break a link. Stopping them while maintaining and remaining true to your values, that is the tricky part.
I've told voters before to be careful what you vote on. If you cannot validate it, if you cannot verify it right in front of you, then you shouldn't be voting on it, and you should be asking for a paper ballot.
Use paper ballots. We can use an optical scanner to scan the paper ballots. If it turns out that an optical scanner, which is also a computer, has been corrupted in some way or hacked in some way, then we've got these paper ballots we can go back to and count them by hand.
Whether it's Vladimir Putin or Harri Hursti who's attacking the machines, the only surefire way to know whether the machines are telling the truth about the election results is to do an audit, to look at the paper, and to make sure that what's on that paper matches the results that the computers are saying.